concern. And in this instance, as we did last time, we have a very personal story of Sarah being mean to Ishmael's mother. On the other hand, Ishmael's mother is not very kind to Sarah. But again, these stories are not told in any sort of magnifying way to make these people seem wonderfully, marvelously superhuman. In fact, the opposite. They're told to make them seem as human as possible. Now that's a difference, I think, of the Old and New Testament too. Whereas the heroes in the New Testament are presented in superhuman terms, and in some Old Testament stories too. These early stories are as human as possible. Look, Jesus has no imperfections, does he? He gets angry once or twice. Kicks over some money tables or something like that, but other than that, you know, he doesn't even hit anyone when they hit him or anything like that. He's got, you know, perfection personified, and that's what they want to do. They want to show you what was an ideal in the Greco-Hellenistic world of perfection. I don't think it's Hebraic perfection, as I told you, because it seems to me more like Socratic perfection. In other words, it's more like Socrates would have behaved than, let's say, anyone I can think of in the Middle East. I can't, even today, nobody behaves like that in the Middle East. So it's more like a Hellenistic perfection. I don't think it's a Palestinian perfection. So, but the character is presented to you as perfect, or as close to perfect as you can get with that ideal in mind. Now here, these characters are presented as imperfect. Now I don't know what you prefer. It's your taste. Literally speaking, I think imperfect characters are more attractive. Religiously speaking, I think maybe perfect characters are more attractive. So I'm not sure that you were expected to read this in a religious way as much as be moved by the stories. And the stories are, of course, extremely moving, as you know, even though they're just sketched out real quickly. So Abraham, he's presented, I'll get you a minute. Abraham is presented as a rather soft-headed person, isn't he? In one sense, he can't control his physical senses. If all his wife has to do is put a woman in his bed, bam, he has relations with her. He doesn't mind. And then when his wife, he can't control the woman then from being mean to his wife. Then when his wife complains, he throws the woman out of the camp. He can't stand up to his wife either. So he's, in fact, almost every episode so far has been presented as very, very weak, isn't it? But anyway, we all admire Abraham for some reason. Why? Because we're told to. Yeah.
Just a quick question. Are you talking about the Yahweh's tradition when you're speaking about this month?
I think this is Yahweh's chapter 16.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about how this is so far.
I think, you know, not the abstract priestly material, which is more ceremonial, but even the other was portrayed.
So the way it's been meant.
Yeah, I think they're all the same. Certainly in the Genesis, they're all the same. The Always, particularly. The Always is right, a master storyteller. The other ones are trying to sort of, I think, fix up, you know, smooth up, clean up the Always a bit. So whenever anyone's trying to clean something up, that person usually is not as effective as the thing he's trying to clean up. Have you ever written something and then rewritten it afterwards? Usually what you rewrite is not as fresh sounding as what you wrote in the first place. Maybe it may be better, make more sense, but it loses a certain amount of freshness. And I think that the other stories lose freshness if they're the same kind of stories as the oldest. But anyway, so again, I told you I had some Muslims in this class sometimes, and one of the Muslim students was very upset about these stories. He said, these stories are horrible, they're lies, Abraham never behaved like that, our prophet said Jews and Christians lie, and now I see what he meant. You know? Well, what could I say to him, you know? He said, this is not Abraham, these are lies. And, you know, and he was very indignant about these stories. And I can understand how he felt in a religious way. Because Abraham is presented in Islam as Islam is Abraham's religion, and Abraham is the first monotheist, and Muhammad is coming to restore the religion of Abraham and get rid of the idolatry, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
But don't they still use the same text?
They don't use Old Testament. They have their own version in the Quran. They don't use these. No, they don't use these texts. In fact, most of them are totally unfamiliar with these texts, and therefore when he read these texts, he was shocked. Which I'm not laughing at him, I'm just laughing because it's entertaining to me, you know. Yeah. Oh, they borrow from the texts, like we said. They borrow the figure of Abraham and use him for their own purposes.
Not the Quran itself, but I thought they had the Hebrew texts.
No, they don't have anything
They don't
in
have
Hebrew at all. No, that in today's world as well, they wouldn't even think of looking at anything in Hebrew about Abraham. But they don't mind borrowing. So, and here is interesting because you see, despite their attitude, in chapter 16, actually, Hagar and Ishmael are presented very sympathetically, aren't they? And these are supposed to be the father of the Arab peoples, according to the Arabs, and to some extent the Yahweh's genealogies. As I told you before, I really can't imagine that Ishmael is the father of all people who call themselves Arabs, because there's people from Morocco to Afghanistan who call themselves Arabs, and I'm sure if you took a DNA on these folks, you'd find a wild assortment of different backgrounds in them, and they certainly wouldn't in any shape or form show any descendants, I'm sure, from someone in Palestine or Sinai. You know, interesting thing that they had a lecture last night, and the lecturer was talking about some of the work done on the scrolls, and he was talking about in the caves. They were saying what kind of personal artifacts were found in the caves, and he was saying that there are actually were toothbrushes or wooden things that they used to brush their teeth with and so on, or was it hairbrushes? I guess it was hairbrushes. I guess that's what he was saying, hairbrushes, and that there were lice still on the hairbrushes, from that time, not living ones, but dead ones, and there was blood inside the lice, and they were actually taking the blood from the lice and doing DNA tests on these people who lived in Palestine 2,000 years ago. So, I mean, if you want to know, how we can measure such things, there's an incredible example of what we can do. Okay, so again, if a Muslim speaks to you about the way Westerners treat their heroes, say, well, look at the Old Testament, Ishmael, if anyone looks bad, it's Sarah here, not so much Hagar. She's just young and, behaves as a young girl or young lady who would be proud that she was chosen to bear Abraham's child, might behave. And certainly the fact that Sarah has her thrown out and then she's all alone in nowhere, and then an angel of God is presented as appearing to her and then quieting her and tells her, this is fine and don't worry, your descendant's going to be great. This is where we left off. Now you have conceived, you will bear